Hello, college wrestling fans. This is Steven Stonebreaker, also known as Johnny Thompson #1. I run and operate and write for Johnny Thompson #1 blogspot.com, college wrestling website. And my video today is in response to a video that Fanco made about how Title IX destroyed SEC wrestling, Southeastern Conference wrestling. And before I get into this video, I do want to say that this video isn't like trying to make an enemy out of anyone or trying to start a fight with anyone. I actually think Fanco does fantastic work. I watch their videos, I support their videos, I am a fan of their videos. I love his passion and love and dedication and knowledge of the sport of wrestling. I'm simply offering another perspective, and I believe I am offering, in fact I know I'm offering information that was not included in his video, and I do believe that some of his video and some of what he had to say in that video was misinformed and misconstrued. Now, before I continue into this, I'm going to provide a little bit of credibility for myself. On my website, johnnythompson1.blogspot.com, I am currently doing a series called Gone, Lost, and Forgotten. And what Gone, Lost, and Forgotten is all about is I take a look at wrestling teams that we have lost. Not all of them, because I wasn't able to find information on all of them, but I was able to find information on close to 400 teams in NCAA Division I, NCAA Division II, Division III, the NAIA, the National Junior College Athletic Association, and the California Community College Athletic Association. I take a look at these programs, who they were, who their coaches were, who was on the teams, and then any accomplishments and credentials such as All-Americans, place winners, and conference competition, how guys did at the Midlands tournament, at the Southern Scuffle, at Cliff Keen, Las Vegas, any and all information that I can find. And I've compiled this information, and right now I'm going through team by team, and I'm posting information that I've found about these teams. I have been researching these drop programs for a long time, a very long time. I first became interested in learning about wrestling programs that we have dropped over the years when I was a freshman in high school. I grew up in Iowa, and this is going to sound funny because you would figure I would have wanted to be a Iowa Hawkeye or a Cyclone or a Northern Iowa Panther, but instead I always wanted to be a Syracuse Orangeman. And the Orangemen dropped their wrestling program in 2001, and that's when I really started to look into and learn that, oh my, we have lost a tremendous amount of wrestling teams over the years. And then I attended the NCAA Division I championships in Omaha, Nebraska back in 2010. And while I was there, I sat next to this group of guys that were from Southern Illinois, Carbondale. And they were all NCAA Division II national qualifiers. And I was talking to one of them, and he told me, he said, you know, what bothered him the most is that if he went to the SIU Carbondale website, their athletic website, there was nothing there about what he had done. He was a two-time conference champion. He was a two-time NCAA Division II national qualifier, and they didn't recognize him for that. There was no recognition. There was no, look what this guy did, look what this athlete, but look what this wrestler did for our school. There was nothing. And that really bothered him, and honestly, it really bothered me too. I thought, that's not right. That sucks. This guy ought to be celebrated for what he did, as should the rest of the wrestlers who competed for the Salukis during the time that Carbondale had a wrestling program. And that's when I really decided that one of these days I'm going to sit down and I'm going to find out as much information as I can about these dropped wrestling programs. And I started to kind of look into it here and there a long time ago, but probably about 2014 is when I just dove into it. And I decided I'm going to find out as much information about these programs as I can possibly find. And then once I've compiled all of it, I'm going to start putting it out there team by team. And that's what I've been doing for about the past year with my series Gone, Lost, and Forgotten. And that's where my response comes in right now. So now we're 5 minutes into the video, and I'm going to get into how Fanco's video blaming Title IX for the departure and why SEC wrestling came to an end is really not fair. It's not a fair statement to make. Now, in order for me to be fair here, I have to say that Title IX, was it a part of it? Yes. Was Title IX involved? Yes. Would these wrestling programs still be around if it wasn't for Title IX? I don't know. That's kind of a maybe. But it's not fair to completely put all the blame on Title IX because it's like it's put it. I guess I'm trying to think of the best analogy to use, and perhaps this is a good one, perhaps it's not. But when someone shoots someone with a gun, when another person is murdered with a gun, do we blame the gun? Do we say that the gun is why that person is dead? It's the gun's fault, and then leave it at that? Or do we put a little bit of responsibility on the person who happened to take the gun, happened to load the bullets in the gun, and happened to shoot the other person? We understand as a society, or at least we should, that while the gun was involved and the gun was used to kill the other person, you can't sit there and say it's all the gun's fault. You have to have the person who did the shooting take some responsibility, and that's the exact same case here with Title IX, and that's something that Fanco did not get into. And I think that was, like I said before, I appreciate his work. I think he does great work. I support his work, and I'm a fan of his work, but that was irresponsible. It was unfair, and it was irresponsible, and I'm going to explain now, to the best of my ability, why that's unfair and why that's irresponsible. So, with Title IX coming in and Title IX becoming an issue in the early 70s after it was put into legislation back in 1972. So let's get into SEC wrestling and how SEC wrestling came to an end. What really happened with SEC wrestling was that you started dwindling the teams. This team dropped, that team dropped, and then by 1981 they were down to less than 5 teams, and that's when the SEC decided we don't have enough teams to really justify having a conference championship anymore. Therefore, the conference is no longer going to support wrestling. So let's get into that a little bit. So Fanco wants to say it was all Title IX's fault, and he even said in his video, and this is the one line where I decided I have to respond to this video, and that's when he said, you can't blame football. I'm going to say, yes, you can blame football. In a lot of ways, football was the reason why we lost wrestling in the SEC. So with that said, I'll get into that right now. So the perfect example of where it really all started, like when we started to really lose SEC wrestling, was in the 1978-1979 season when head football coach, athletic director at the University of Florida, Charlie Pell, made a discovery about how he could use Title IX to his advantage. And this is something that football coaches, basketball coaches, athletic directors, people with money, people with power, people with positions started to realize. Proportionality quotas, which Fanco sort of mentioned in his video, what it really states is that if you have a percentage of students on campus, let's make it really super simple. If you have 50% male and 50% female, that's a representation of the entire student body. Therefore, your athletics programs, the scholarships that you use for the athletic programs and the resources and the money and everything else that goes into athletics, that also has to be the exact same balance, the exact same proportionality. It has to be 50-50, 50% male, 50% female. And what Title IX was designed to do was to be an addition. It was to say that, okay, it's 55% male and it's 45% female. We need to add something here. We need to add women's volleyball, add women's rowing, add women's scholarships to our softball program, whatever, in order to make that now a 50-50 ratio. It was never meant to be something where it was supposed to be subtraction. But the problem is you can achieve the exact same proportionality quotas. You can meet that percentage quota through subtraction. And that's exactly what Charlie Pell did at the University of Florida. What he did is he realized Now, wait a minute. We are not in compliance with Title IX right now. We have more opportunities for men and men's athletics here at the University of Florida than we do for women. Now, Florida could have just as easily added women's volleyball or added another women's sport, whatever they didn't have, they could have added that, and then they could have been compliant with Title IX and proportionality. But instead, what Charlie Pell did as the head football coach is he realized that Title IX was actually going to give him an opportunity to increase resources, to increase money, and to increase space for his football program. So rather than add a women's sport, what he did is he eliminated men's wrestling. He said, let's take away men's wrestling. But once you take away men's wrestling, you still have that budget. You still have that space. You still have those resources. So there was still money there that at one time was used for the wrestling program. And he took that money and he said, well, now I have all this money that was once for wrestling. And he put that money back into football to increase the scholarship money for the football program. He took the wrestling room and he made offices for the football staff. So he just got through doing something where he had to put no extra money into anything, and he was able to eliminate the wrestling program while increasing scholarships for the football program and creating a new space for his football staff. And by eliminating wrestling, it made the proportionality quotas back to the percentage that they needed to be. So in that particular case, do you sit there and do you say to yourself that the reason why the University of Florida, the reason why the Gators no longer have wrestling is because of Title IX? Well, yeah, Title IX's involved, and Title IX was a part of it, but how can you not say that that wasn't Charlie Pell's fault, and that wasn't Charlie Pell being greedy, and Charlie Pell figuring out a way that, hey, I can eliminate wrestling, make everybody happy here, as far as Title IX proportionality quota is concerned, while at the same time giving an extra boost to my football program. So, in my opinion, and I think if you listen to, and I got other stories too, believe me, this isn't the only one. I can tell you about Auburn. Same thing happened at Auburn. The exact same thing happened at Auburn. Pat Dye was a football coach there, and Pat Dye was the athletic director there. And what he wanted to do is he wanted more space, more resources, and more money for football. So again, he used Title IX as an excuse. And he walked in, and I can verify this story, or at least tell you that I had members of the wrestling team, members of the Tiger wrestling team, that told me this. They said that they were getting ready for their first wrestling practice. They were having meetings about wrestling practice coming up in the year of 1981, 1982. And Pat Dye walked into the wrestling room, and this was sometime in mid-October, maybe late October. And he walked into the wrestling room and whispered something to Coach Milkovich. And he walked out of the room. And as he walked out of the room, some of the wrestlers heard him utter, "This will make a great training room for the football team." And it was announced later on that day that Auburn wrestling was coming to an end. They would not have a season in 1981, 1982. And this was after they won the SEC Conference Championship as a team in 1981, and they produced, I'd have to go back and look at my records, but I think they had 6 or 7 NCAA qualifiers, and I think 3 of them were All-Americans that year. So that's what I had to come back and say, and I got other examples too, believe me. I got a ton of them where something like this happened, where you look it up online. Why did Notre Dame drop their wrestling program? And then you look it up, they dropped it because of Title IX. No, they didn't. They really didn't. The real reason why these programs were dropped is because of greedy football coaches, greedy athletic directors, people that saw an opportunity to use Title IX as an excuse to eliminate a program. Now, is that every single program? No. Is there times when you can sit there and say that, nah, it was Title IX's fault? Yeah. There are programs like that too. Like I said, I have found about 375 programs throughout the years, and this is in every division, all divisions of varsity wrestling, that have dropped their wrestling programs. And yes, you do find examples of where Title IX is to blame, but I had to respond to this video because SEC wrestling, Southeastern Conference wrestling, to sit there and to say that it came to an end and to put the entire blame on Title IX, that is unfair, that is irresponsible, and that is misplacing the blame, the entirety of the blame, on one thing, and that's just not fair. Is Title IX a part of it? Yes. But in reality, the real reason we lost these programs was because of people like Bear Bryant, because of people like Charlie Pell, and because of people like Pat Dye. That's the real reason why SEC wrestling came to an end, and I had to share that.